Hi, I'm Bob Paul. I know that doesn't mean anything to a lot of you, but what I want to do here today is give you a basic lesson on how to paint watercolors. A lot of people will love to do watercolors, but they're scared to death because it's the kind of material that frightens people. If you've ever painted oils, you got to understand that this is totally different. And it's just the opposite. In oils, you paint your darks first, and then you paint your lights on top of it. And the reason for that is you can correct your mistakes. Watercolor, you can't do that. You do it just the opposite. You put your light colors down, you can add another one, and then gradually get dark. But the beauty of it is if the water is on the paper, and you will see this, the two colors start to run together, and you've got some exciting stuff to show, all right? And you can't do that with oil. And my philosophy is what I'm going to teach you today, any 8-year-old child with 50 years of painting experience can do this. Now, what we're going to do is show you some basic brushes, water materials. This is the palette, and this is a special palette, and it is a Pike palette. John Pike, who was a famous watercolorist, developed this palette, and it has little ridges in it, if you can see it. And what it does is it separates the colors. And we go from warm to cool so that you know where you're going and you're going to lay them out, okay? This is your basic water bottle, all right? And this is something that I developed called a bumper. What it is, it's paper towel wrapped around a kitchen towel. And what you can do is if you get too much water or too much paint, what you do is you brush it off on here and it won't ruin your painting. This is the spritzer. And what you do, you got to have your paints nice and wet, not over wet, but if they're not wet, you're not going to be able to draw them. Your other basic ingredient is paper towel. And you not to wipe up after yourself, but you're going to use it for different treats and different things that you're going to do. Finally, I will show you this brush. Now, this brush looks like a normal paintbrush that you'd pick up at a hardware store, and actually it is. It's a 3-inch brush, and what you would use it for is to paint or put water down on large areas, okay? So what I've got here is roughly a painting. I'm going to make a painting of a storm coming up on the shore. You're going to see two boats that are marooned on the shore. They're kind of tipped to one side. You can see the waves coming up. And in the foreground, you're going to see a little puddle or a rivulet that was put in. And I'm going to show you a trick so that we can make it look like there are stones and other things. Okay, you ready? Let's go to paint. All right, what we're going to do is take our paintbrush from the hardware store, and I'm not going to super saturate it. I'm just going to make it wet. And what I'm going to do is paint across the area where we're going to put the sky. Now, you'll notice I'm only going in one direction. And the reason for that is if you go back and go back and forth, you're going to find that the paint will lift off as you come back, okay? So I'm putting this color down, and now I'm going to go to a smaller brush. This is called an aquarelle. And the aquarelle has a flat front on it, and you can also use the rear end of this thing to scrape out colors. All right, so we got some color down here. Now, as I told you, you start from the lightest color first, and then you go to the darkest color. So what I'm going to do is pick up some lemon yellow here, all right? And I'm going to start at the bottom here, and I'm going in one direction, as you notice. And I don't care if it picks up other things. I'm going right through the mast of the ship, because we will fix that later, all right? I'm going up, 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 up. Next, I'm going to go to another color, which is a cadmium yellow, which is like an orange yellow. It's a little deeper. But watch what happens now. As I put that in there, it starts to blend with the lemon yellow at the bottom. All right, 1/3 color I'm going to put in there now would be like the sun shining in the background, and that's a cadmium orange. You with me? I've got to get some more color out of these. All right, there we go. There we go. Get some more color. We put that in there. All right. Now, if you take this and you tilt it, what you're going to find is that the colors will all run together, and when it's finished, it won't look like separate colors. Now, we want to make this to be a storm. All right. So what I'm going to do is go to a sepia, which has a dark brown, and I'm going to make a storm cloud I can't do it here today with some possible rain, but I do have a lightning bolt that I've put in here. Now what I'm going to do is put this in here. You see the lightning bolt coming up now? What I did, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute, I'm going to make it real dark up here, all right? And have it come down so that you know that there's rain coming, all right? You want the continuity. I can always take a smaller brush and pull it out a little more if I want to. But I don't know if you can see this, but there is a lightning bolt in there. And what I did was, this is the secret. This is what you do when the lights go out. It's a candle. It's a plain old candle. And what you do is you put it down on the paper before you paint, and what you get is wax. So that when you start to put your colors down, you will find that it won't, the colors underneath won't show through. It will be white when it dries. All right, now, we've got the sea, and the sea's coming up kind of heavy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a lighter color blue, right? And I'm just going to go right in there. An interesting phenomenon that a lot of people don't know. When you paint water, if you look at the water, you go out to Hammonasset or one of these places, you will see a straight line across the top of the water, and what it is a black line. It's an optical illusion, but it actually appears. Now I'm going to make this darker. And you notice I'm going back and forth. I'm letting the other color come through, right? And what we're going to do here is just play with this so that when it dries, you're going to see the water, okay? All right. You with me so far? Okay, here we go. You know, what I may do is just take a little burnt sienna. That's a fun color because, whoops, dirty brush. So we're going to clean the brush. Burnt sienna is a beautiful color. If you know anything about sienna, it's a red-brown, and this is the kind of thing that when you add it to another color, it brings it to a new dimension. And I'm just going to, this is the surf. Now, the guy that I learned from was a guy by the name of Herb Olson. Herb used to be an illustrator for Collier's, the Saturday Evening Post. A great man. He was good friends with Norman Rockwell. And he always said to me that he thought that Rockwell was very neurotic because any guy who had to sign his name that large was very, very neurotic. Okay, I wasn't going to argue with him. I loved the man dearly, and he taught me so much in a short period of time. All right, I'm going to leave the boats. We're not going to do the boats. The whole secret, again, is you go as far back as you can, and then you come forward. As you can see, the colors are blending together, and you're getting these very fuzzy and soft edges, which looks like storm clouds and the possibility of rain, all right? Now here's my lightning bolt, which isn't coming through quite right yet, but we'll fix that later. I am going right through the mast of the boat. Now, there is something very sophisticated called dynamic symmetry. Symmetry, it means that an illustration or a painting is made up of squares, rectangles, circles and triangles, all right? And what I'm trying to do here, or the whole purpose of those, is to point to something to get you moving in the painting. So here is a triangle which will bring you down to the boats, right? And this mast, when it comes back up, will bring you back up. The circular motion of the boats brings it all together. And then we've got what's going on down here, and I'll explain that to you later. All right, again, starting from as far back as you can, I'm going to start painting the boats now. I'm not going to paint the sand, but I will do that, okay? You know, I'm going to do something else instead. Before I do that, I'm going to take a little bit of this cerulean blue, and the way you do it is you thin it out with water. And I'm going to make it like waves along the shore behind the boat, and it will come in here, and what it will do is make a break of color. And if I had the time and I had the, the wherewithal, I would make it look like breaking waves, but I'm not going to do that because this is to teach you how to do something very simply. Okay? All right. And there's your water, your shoreline. And again, beautifully, it will all blend together. Okay, now we can start working on the boats. All right, this is a rowboat, and it's kind of leaning over on its side. So what I'm going to do is go back to that burnt sienna. And this time I'm going to paint with a small brush, all right? Now, the inside of the boat is different color than the outside of the boat, okay? So I'm going to put some color down here. And again, wet into wet. That's my theory. I work differently than most people do. A lot of people who are just starting out with watercolor paint what they call dry brush. And dry brush, to me, is kind of boring because it doesn't do justice to what you're trying to paint. All right, now, we've got this boat, and now what I'm going to do is add no detail, but I'm going to add some shadow to it to give it a three-dimensional look. How's that? You like that? We made a little bit in the front, a little bit on the top. All right. We're going to leave the inside for now because that's where the seats are in the boat. Okay. Now that was done with a small brush. I'm going to get a bigger one now, a round brush. That's this baby. All right. This is number 4 brush. There are basic brushes that you need when you're painting, and they are the Aquarelle, a number 6, a number 4, and a number 2. All right, now I'm going to use the same colors for the bigger boat. And again, the way I was taught by Herb Olson was that you paint with 3 colors, 1, 2, and 3. And the secret to that is that when these colors come together, like here in the sky, they all have a tendency to blend together, and you get a color that you can't get with oil. All right? I'm laying water down, and now I'm going to paint a little of this burnt sienna. I'm going to put it in on the side here, and I'm painting light because what happens is when you paint, you'll find that the paint dries lighter than you're putting it down. So if you put down something dark, chances are it won't be as dark as you put it down. Now I'm going to add another color just because it's sea. I'm going to add a little bit of that cerulean blue. You see, this is the 1, 2, 3 I was talking about. And this makes it go there. And then finally, I'm going back to the sepia. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bottom of the boat in there. All right? We're going to go and put the bottom right through there. And you notice also that it blends beautifully. All right, so you got the hull of the boat and the steering rod and everything else that goes with it. All right? Now, I want to make this area a little bit darker because there's a shadow on this side of the boat, right? So I'm just using a light wash of the sepia, and I'm going to tilt it. And what it's going to do, again, is pick up that wonderful, wonderful movement that only watercolor can give you. All right, I'm going over to this guy now, and he's got a hole. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. He's got a hole too that's sitting in the sand. All right, and you don't see much definition here, but you will see it soon. All right, I'm coming back now to my burnt sienna, and I'm going to put the burnt sienna in the cabin of the boat. All right, wet it a little bit more, and you notice it's a different color. It's a different color, and it works because it's all gonna blend together very, very nicely. And I'm gonna take a really small brush, and what I'm gonna do is just add a little bit of shadow in there, right? How's that? Just a little bit of shadow, because the sun's coming this way, so we'll put the shadow here, put the shadow here, put the shadow here, and the shadow is here too, all right? How are we doing so far? You guys understand? You got any questions? Raise your hand. Yes, sir. Okay, he didn't want to ask a question. All right, we're doing good here so far. We got ourselves an interesting painting. All right, now, if you know what I'm doing here and you follow what I'm doing, and I'm doing this very fast, by the way. Usually I work considerably slower. I'm going to take my aquarelle again. I'm cleaning my brushes using my bumper, which is really great. And what happens is when it gets saturated with color, what you do is just tear it off and throw it away. All right, I'm going to clean the palette now so that we have something good to work with. Nice and clean, all right? And what I'm going to do now is put in the sand. We're moving forward. But again, you start as far back as you can and you come forward, all right? So I'm going to use the yellow ochre, which is an interesting color. It's not really yellow and it's not really brown, but it's got a vitality of its own. It's not the greatest color in the world, but if you ever look at a beach, and what I'm going to do is put this in here like so. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to wet it a little bit more, and I'm going to pull some more across here. You with me? Don't go away, because there's more exciting things to come. I'm going to teach you tricks that you wouldn't believe you could do. It's like one of them was with that candle, all right? Now, I'm putting some more of this in, and I'm just striping it in there. Pardon my shoulder, pardon my back, pardon my front, but that's the way I'm built, okay? Here we go, we're putting this in. And what this is gonna be eventually, and you see that these colors are like this one, is drifting into the sand, all right? And what that is, it's gonna be a shadow. Holy smokes. How does he do this, folks? I want you to notice at no time do my fingers leave my hands. All right? I'm gonna put this thing in here. We're gonna come forward so that it's gonna get just a little bit darker as you get into the sand, all right? You with me? Here we go. Don't run away. The best is yet to come. I'm leaving this space open because there's a runoff of water in there. And what we're going to do is when this dries a little bit more, we're going to put that in there, okay? I need some more paint. Can't paint without paint. Paint and water. And remember, it's paint and water, and you can call it what you want. You can call it smearing. And what you notice, I'm doing some large areas here, right? I don't know if you can see this, but the shadow from the boat itself has cast a wonderful shadow. So I'm still working with the yellow ochre, and I'm going to do something else with it that will absolutely startle you. I'm going back to the burnt sienna. You with me? Okay, here we go, burnt sienna. And I'm just going to kind of run it through here like this. And what's going to happen is while this is still wet, it's going to start to look like sand, all right? And I'm going to do one other thing when it's dry that will blow your mind. One of the things you can paint with, and a lot of people have asked me about it, is salt. I don't have any with me, but if you have kosher salt, It's interesting because if you got a wet area like this and you want it to look like it's got a texture, all right, you sprinkle some of the kosher salt on it, and when it hits the wet paper, the salt absorbs like a blotter. What it does it in a crystalline shape. How do you like them apples? All right. I'm going to do something I said I wouldn't do, but I'm going to go back and get another color. I'm going to go back and get some more of this yellow. And I'm just going to throw it in there because what it's going to do, it's all going to blend together. All right. Oh, I should have listened to my mother. She wanted me to be a shepherd. This is terrible. As I said before, any 8-year-old child with 50 years of experience can do this. All right, where are we, folks? You see where we are? What do we got now? We've got the sky. All right, here's your sky, and the sky's got a lightning bolt coming down. And this is your shore in the background, and this is the near shore. That's where the waves would be, all right? Here is your boat sitting there, the little dinghy, and this is a fishing boat, all right? But you can see now how the shadow here has taken into the wet paint, and it's got a real shadow of its own. All right, I'm now gonna put some detail into that little boat, okay? And I'm gonna grab a small brush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take some more of this burnt sienna because it's a fun color, and I'm just going to stick some in there. All right, these are the seats in the boat, okay? Now you got to be careful because I dipped my elbow, back of my hand in there, and that can really ruin your painting. All right, now I'm going back to the sepia, and what I'm going to do is put the seats of the boat in there, and I don't care if it runs together or not. This is the inside of the boat. All right, there's the seat, and we're just going to run a line around here. Can you see it? Yeah, okay. All right, just going to run a line around. Okay, now this ship has glass windows in it. This one doesn't. And don't worry that it doesn't look like anything right now because we're going to come back and put detail in it later. So what I'm going to do is pick up some of this waves in the background, and I'm going to put it in the glass in the ship, okay? And I'm going to wet it and just put a little bit so that it comes in there. See it? Okay. Now, I may want to make it look like something else. So I'm going to pick up a little of this burnt sienna again and just throw it in there with the blue, with the cerulean. Okay, so far, so good. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Now, I'm going to do something which I shouldn't do. I should wait for it to dry completely. But what we're going to do is put the water in this, I wouldn't call it a puddle. It's a runoff more than anything else. So what I'm going to do is wet that. Go and get my water. And the reason I use this big container of water is, this is an interesting fact, the muck from the paint settles at the bottom, but you still have clean water at the top. All right? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, now I'm going to take the cerulean again, and I'm going to thin it out a little bit. All right? And we're going to put water in there. Holy smokes. Oh boy, I love this. You can see what these colors are doing, how they blend together. And again, you can't do that with oils. Right? This thing comes through here. Remember, I wet this first, right? So we've got an area here with water. And I'm going to put a little bit up here too. Now you can see that it washes through, but we're not through because when you have a little water thing like this, it pushes the soil aside. And what we're going to do is take a color called burnt umber, which is somewhere between burnt sienna and sepia, okay? It's a strange color because if, the word umber is a frightening word. You know, it's something you do on Halloween. And I'm just going to throw a little bit of sepia in and make it darker. And what we're going to do is I'm going to dot it. You see how it's dotting? And what it's doing is it's showing how the water has raised the ridges here of this this sand, all right? Now we're going to put one over here. Right? Huh. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Looks easy, doesn't it? Like I said, any 8-year-old child with 50 years of experience can do this. I'm coming back again. Can you see what I'm doing here? Great. Put some more in here. Now, as you can see, it looks like there's water running through there, right? I think I'm going to make this one just a little bit darker. Right? And don't worry about there being white in here. It shouldn't be pure white, but in this case it is because I don't have the wherewithal at the moment to fix any of this up. But we're in good shape, folks. Don't worry about it. Yes. All right. Now, enough of that. I usually use, believe it or not, a hair dryer, a low frequency hair dryer. And the frequency of the hair dryer actually blows the color dry. It's the same thing as leaving it out in the sun. It raises it up, it blows it out, and it will dry much faster. Otherwise, you have to sit around and wait, okay? Now, I'm going to clean my palette again because I'm going to do something that's going to scare you to death. Oh, yes. I'm going to, I don't know if I, well, anyway, what I'm going to do is take some more water, and I'm going to take some burnt sienna, right? I'm going to put it on this brush, and what I'm going to do is create rocks, all right? And what I'm doing, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm tapping this. And what it does is it makes little, well, we don't want that one. It makes these dots, all right? It's not wet enough, and that's the reason it's not making the dots. There we go. That's more like it. All right? Looks like rocks. And nobody's going to know that it isn't rocks, all right? But we're going to tell them how good we are by making these rocks. All right? I'm going to put some over here, and put some down here, and put some over here, and over here, all right? But we're not through putting in the rocks because these are light-colored rocks, right? So what I'm going to do is take some more of the sepia and blend it with the burnt sienna. And we're going to tap this in now, and you're going to see more rocks coming up. You know, there's all this stuff. There are shells and rocks and everything else that you could imagine. And you got to be careful, though, because you don't want to get it all over the place, and you don't want to get it on the water down here, okay? All right, now, we're all, oh, look at this, I got it in the sky. Well, I can take that out because there is a miracle brush. This brush is an oil painting brush, and it has very coarse hair on it. I'm going to get another clean paper towel. And what it does is you go in, I don't know if you can see these dots on the screen, but there are these little dots in here. You brush them out with this and then go back in gently because you don't want to remove the color underneath. And by doing this, it removes the little dots that are in the sky. All right, here's some more. And you notice that the color stays. All right, I'm going to take this one out. All right. I'm going to leave it in the clouds because nobody's going to know. Okay? All right, now, the last thing I'm going to do is the mast, and that I'm going to wait until later. What I want to do now is put some detail on the boats, okay? And here's what we got. I'm going to go back to the sepia again with a fine brush, right? And I'm going to put a line here. Can you see that? Which gives it definition. Here's another one that gives it definition on there. I got a light one here just to show, right? And maybe a little more over here, right? And we've got one coming down here and under the hull, right? And what will happen is that will blend with the shadow, right? And I'm going to take this and put a little color in the hull so it kind of stands out. And then I think what I'll do is draw some more shadow out of that over here. All right, we're going to do the same thing with the dinghy. All right, and you can't really see what this is, but I'm going to put some of this black along here. All right, and we're going to put some here because that's the back of the boat, right? We're going to start it here, and I'm just going to move it in a little bit because that isn't wet under there anymore. So what I can do, the same as I did with the bristle brush, I can use this brush to take out some color. I'm going to put a little bit up here, and here's the outline of the top of the boat. Comes down like that, right? And there's your boat. My goodness. People in Maine should know how easy it is to make a boat. All right. Now, the last thing we got to do is put that mast in. Now, normally what I would have done, there is a product called Maskoid, which a lot of new people use. Now, Maskoid is like a rubber cement liquefied. And what you do is you take it and you paint it over the area that you want to be pure white underneath. And in doing that, when you paint over it, it's like with the candle here, right? Then you got a device called a rubber cement pickup. And after you're through painting, you pick it up and it's perfectly white underneath. You can do what you want. I'm not going to do that today because time is of the essence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mast from here. And this is tricky. It's always better, if you're painting trees, it's always good to paint from the bottom up, right? But if you're painting this mast, right, and I'm going to go right through to here, right into the cloud, okay? You see that? Son of a gun. How does he do it, folks? All right, then I don't know what the heck this thing is because I don't know that much about boats, but I like painting them. Right? You put a little line like this coming off the end, and it looks like something official. And here's another one up at the top. I don't know what it does. And then I have a brush here, which is a very, very fine brush. And they tell you if you're going to put a point on the brush, don't put it in your mouth because this usually comes from sable, right? And the sable comes from the rear end of the animal. So if you want to put it in your mouth to put a point on it, do what you want. All right, I'm now going to take the line coming down. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. If it was at sea, it would probably be straighter because the wind was blowing at it, okay? And this is coming down here, okay? And I think we are almost finished. I'm going to put another one in here just for the heck of it. Okay. Now this is very quick, very crude, but it gives you an opportunity to see what watercolor can do as opposed to oil. Right? The final touch, the pièce de résistance, is when it's completely dry. You take one of these, which is not a brush, and oh, it's dry. How do you like them apples? Well, we'll have to do it later. But you put your signature in there, all right? How do you like that? All right, so that's it for how to paint. Now what I'd like to do is just show you some recent paintings that I've done. They are not framed, they are not matted, but it will give you an idea of what you can do when you're painting watercolors. All right, wait a minute, let me open my mystery satchel here. All right. As I told you, my painting style is called realistic, all right? And I don't like to fool around with flowers. This is not your mother's watercolor that I do, all right? Let me just show you some of the things that you can do. This, here we go. You recognize this if you've been to Italy? You know what this is, right? And this is all done with watercolors. And the brilliant reds and the buildings and the gondolas in the foreground, that's one. Right? And again, it's all done with watercolors. This, if you can guess what it is, you can have it. This is a Buddhist temple. Right? But if you notice, you got the mountain in the background, and you've got the various colors on the building, and you can see the 1, 2, and 3 in there. Staircase coming down. There's even 3 in the mountain. If you look real closely, there's a couple of monks coming down the staircase. Right? Here's another one. This was done from a photograph that I saw of England. All right? And it's England in the rain, and they got the police on the horses. And one of the nice things you can do with watercolor, if you look at the bottom, is you can pull those colors that are in the building and put them into the rainy streets. And what it does is creates this illusion of wet. And yeah, there are automobiles in the back. There are people standing in the market. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. Here's another one like that. This one is called Somewhere in Europe. If you've ever been to Europe and you go through these back streets, here's a man, a woman, and a dog, or a woman and a man and a dog, all right? And, you know, these are nondescript buildings. If you look off way in the distance, you can see some kind of a temple there, or a church cathedral or something. But again, this is all watercolor, and if you notice these colors, again, the 1, 2, 3, they all blend together. Here's one that I finished a couple of days ago. This is the last one. This is called Opening Night at the, where are we? Here we go. This is called Opening Night at the Philharmonic. Interesting. Now, people say to me, how did you get those straight lines in those orange areas? What you do is you take a piece of matte acetate and you cut a very fine line and another one alongside of it, and you take a cotton ball, and the cotton ball then goes between those lines, and it removes the paint that's underneath, and you get that wonderful effect of the lines from Philharmonic Hall. And the people there are totally nondescript, but I always think of the scene from Moonstruck, you know, when the people are walking in. And if you look at the top, I don't know if you can see it here, but it's nighttime. And what I did was to take some white paint and tap it. And you can see that the stars are there. So, and I got to admit to you that I fudge a little bit because those buildings are perfectly straight. And the way you do that is you play with this marker pen that I showed you. And, you know, and there's my signature at the bottom, so you can see that. All right, and I think that's it. I don't know what to tell you. If you have any questions and you want to know more about how to do watercolor, and if you would like me to come back and show you something else to do in watercolor, as I told you, I don't do your mother's watercolor. It's people, it's buildings. I was even hooked at one time on tugboats. And that can be a heck of a lot of fun, painting tugboats. My brother-in-law is a big fire buff, and he sent me photographs of fireboats in the Hudson River. And I did one with the Verrazano Bridge swinging across. I also live in Vermont, and of course, that is just wonderful for things to paint. So what you can do is take pictures with your camera, if you have one, And if you can't get pictures that you think you could paint, you can always go online. I have done a lot of paintings of New York City in the 20s and the 30s. There are pictures of the guys, the Indians who were the steel workers who walked up on top. I have one, and I didn't bring it with me, but it's a man with a little cart, and he's got hot knishes that he's selling, and there's a woman and a man in winter coats who are buying from them. And people love these things because you don't see it every day. So I'm going to say thank you for your time. You've been very patient. You've put up with me. And it's been a pleasure having me here. My name is Bob Paul, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.